My name is Inverna Toland, and I'm 29 years old. Have you ever been banned from your own family's event because of your job? Not because you committed a crime or caused a scandal, but simply because of how you earn your living? That's exactly what happened to me at my stepmother's charity gala, where 500 of the city's elite gathered to celebrate philanthropy and compassion. The irony wasn't lost on me. What Victoria didn't know was that the man funding her entire event, the CEO she desperately needed to impress, was someone much closer to me than she could have ever imagined. Sometimes the people who should protect you become the ones you need protection from. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Let me tell you how one night changed everything. The Laurent Hotel ballroom sparkled with the kind of elegance that cost more than most people's annual salaries. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing lights across 500 guests in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. This was Victoria's crown jewel, the annual Toland Foundation Charity Gala, where the wealthy gathered to write checks and feel good about themselves. I adjusted my crisp white server's uniform, the one from La Bernardine, the Michelin-starred restaurant where I worked. We'd been hired to cater the event, and I'd specifically requested to work the floor instead of staying in the kitchen. Maybe it was masochistic, but I wanted to see the world Victoria had systematically excluded me from for 5 years. The Laurent Hotel ballroom had never felt colder than that moment when Victoria spotted me. Her champagne flute stopped halfway to her lips. The color drained from her perfectly made-up face, leaving her looking like she'd seen a ghost. Which, in a way, she had. The stepdaughter she'd erased from the family narrative was standing in her precious ballroom, holding a tray of canapes. Cassandra, my stepsister, leaned toward her mother, whispering urgently. Even from across the room, I could see her gesture in my direction, her diamond bracelet catching the light. The same bracelet she'd received for her birthday last month. The party I hadn't been invited to, of course. Victoria's recovery was swift. She straightened her spine, plastered on her charity gala smile, and began moving through the crowd toward me with the determination of a heat-seeking missile. But she wasn't coming to greet me. No, I recognized that look. It was the same one she'd worn when she told my father that perhaps Inverna would be more comfortable celebrating Christmas with her restaurant friends. Two security guards in black suits suddenly appeared near the entrance, and Victoria's assistant was already speaking rapidly into his phone. The other servers continued their rotations, oblivious to the family drama about to unfold. A string quartet played Mozart in the corner, their elegant notes a stark contrast to the tension building in my chest. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a violation of our strict no-phones policy during service, but I'd made an exception tonight. I didn't check it, but I knew who it was. He always had impeccable timing. The room buzzed with conversation about donation goals and tax write-offs, but I kept my eyes on Victoria as she approached. 5 years of being deemed not quite right for the Toland family image was about to come to a head, and I was ready for it. 5 years ago, my father married Victoria Ashford Toland, and my life shifted in ways I never expected. Dad was lonely after Mom passed, and Victoria seemed to fill that void with her charity events and social connections. I was halfway through my MBA at the time, on track for the corporate life everyone expected. Then I discovered my real passion during a wine-pairing dinner at a friend's restaurant. The precision, the artistry, the immediate joy on people's faces. It spoke to me in a way spreadsheets never had. So I made a choice. I left my MBA program and enrolled in culinary school. To Victoria, a waitress daughter was worse than no daughter at all. She never said it directly, of course. Victoria was too sophisticated for outright cruelty. Instead, she'd introduce Cassandra at events as my brilliant daughter, the marketing director, while I simply ceased to exist in her narrative. When family friends asked about Robert's daughter, she'd change the subject with practiced ease. The family dinners became less frequent. The holiday invitations got lost in the mail. The family vacation photos on Facebook featured everyone but me. Dad would call afterward, apologetic but never quite willing to confront his wife. "You know how Victoria is about appearances," he'd say, as if that excused everything. What hurt most wasn't the exclusion itself, it was the gradual acceptance of it. Relatives stopped asking why I wasn't at gatherings. Mutual friends learned not to mention me around Victoria. Even Dad started introducing Cassandra as his daughter at his company events, while I became Inverna. She works in the city. But here's what they didn't know. I'd graduated from Yale before any of this. My failure was choosing passion over prestige, craftsmanship over corner offices. And while they were erasing me from the family history, I was building something entirely my own. The whispers started before Victoria even reached me. Her society friends, the ones who lunch at private clubs and vacation in the Hamptons, had noticed the family drama unfolding. "Is that Robert's daughter?" Aunt Helen's voice carried across her table. "What is she doing here?" "Serving drinks, apparently," her husband George replied with a snort. How embarrassing for Victoria. A cluster of Cassandra's friends, all influencers and trust fund babies, pulled out their phones, sensing drama worthy of their Instagram stories. One of them, a blonde named Madison, who'd never worked a day in her life, laughed loud enough for me to hear. "Oh my God, she's actually wearing a server's uniform. This is too much." Robert, my father, stood near the auction display, surrounded by his business partners. When our eyes met across the room, something flickered in his expression. Shame, regret, maybe both. Then he turned away, suddenly fascinated by a painting he'd never bid on. That small gesture, that deliberate turning away, cut deeper than any of Victoria's calculated snubs. "Inverna shouldn't be here," Cassandra announced to her circle, loud enough to ensure I heard. "This is an exclusive event for Foundation supporters, not staff." The word dripped with disdain. Staff. As if I hadn't grown up in the same house, attended the same family dinners, called her father Dad for 24 years before Victoria entered our lives. Victoria had almost reached me now, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. Behind her, I noticed the security guards beginning to move, trying to look casual as they positioned themselves strategically. The entire ballroom seemed to lean in, 500 guests suddenly interested in our corner of the room. My phone vibrated again. 2 short pulses, his signal that he was close. I kept my expression neutral, professional, even as Victoria's shadow fell across my tray of carefully arranged canapes. The consequences of walking away would ripple far beyond this ballroom. La Bernardine had fought hard for this catering contract. It was our biggest account, worth nearly $500,000 annually. My manager, Chef Bernard, had made it crystal clear. "This event keeps our doors open in Verna. We cannot afford to lose the Toland Foundation." If Victoria had me ejected, if she made a scene, it wouldn't just be my job on the line. The entire restaurant could lose the contract. 23 employees depended on that revenue. Sous chefs, line cooks, servers who were putting kids through college. My pride wasn't worth their livelihoods. Then there was Dad. For all his weakness, he was still my father. If I fought back publicly, if I embarrassed Victoria at her signature event, she'd make him choose. And we both knew who he'd choose. He'd already proven that by looking away moments ago. The last thread connecting me to my mother's memory, to the family home where her piano still sat in the living room, would snap completely. But perhaps the biggest stake was the secret I'd guarded for 2 years. The wedding ring hidden beneath my server's gloves. The marriage certificate filed quietly at City Hall. The life I'd built away from the Toland family drama. Marcus and I had agreed to keep our marriage private until the time was right, until we could reveal it on our own terms. Being forcibly ejected from a charity gala wasn't part of that plan. My manager had warned me, "This account keeps us afloat." Yet standing there, watching Victoria marshal her forces to humiliate me once again, I wondered if some things were worth more than money. The other servers were beginning to notice the tension, casting worried glances my way. One wrong move, one moment of defiance, and everything could crumble. Victoria raised the microphone she'd somehow procured from the stage. Her voice rang out across the ballroom, silencing conversations mid-sentence. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a small security matter to address. 500 heads turned in unison, champagne flutes paused midway to lips. The string quartet faltered, then stopped entirely. In the sudden silence, every breath seemed amplified. Nothing to worry about, Victoria continued, her tone suggesting the opposite. Just a minor issue with someone who shouldn't be here. Her eyes never left mine as she spoke, cold and triumphant. The weight of 500 stares pressed down on me. Phones appeared in hands, raised discreetly to record whatever drama was about to unfold. Someone whispered, "Is that the stepdaughter?" And the whisper spread like wildfire through the crowd. My phone vibrated again, 3 long pulses this time, different from before, urgent. I pulled it out, breaking protocol completely. The text was brief. 5 minutes, don't leave. Marcus never sent messages during events. He was supposed to be at a board meeting across town, finalizing a merger that had consumed his attention for weeks. Something had changed. Victoria's smile widened at my apparent distraction. "Security, please assist this person to the service exit. She seems to have gotten lost." The 2 guards began moving toward me with professional determination. The crowd parted to let them through, creating a corridor of shame lined with familiar faces. Dad's golf buddies, Victoria's book club, Cassandra's sorority sisters. All watching. All waiting to see if Robert Toland's disappointing daughter would make a scene. The larger guard reached for my elbow. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." I stood perfectly still, counting my breaths. 1, 2, 3. The main entrance doors were still closed, but I heard something. Footsteps in the marble foyer beyond. Measured, deliberate, familiar. 4, 5. "You're not on the list." Victoria's words cut through the air like a blade. "I'm working tonight," I replied evenly, keeping my voice professional despite the hundreds watching. "Then stay in the kitchen." She stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to seem reasonable while ensuring everyone could still hear. "The manager assigned me here." I didn't back down, didn't lower my gaze. "I'll speak to them." Victoria's smile never wavered, but her eyes hardened. "This is a private event, Inverna. Family and supporters only." Funny how I'm neither, despite being both. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's composure cracked for just a moment, revealing something ugly beneath. "You were never supposed to be here," she hissed, abandoning pretense. "Your name was never supposed to be on any list. I made sure of that 5 years ago." The admission hung in the air. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Even Cassandra looked surprised by her mother's open hostility. "Mrs. Toland," the security guard interrupted, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama. "Should we?" "Yes," Victoria snapped. "Remove her, now." "I haven't done anything wrong," I stated clearly, ensuring my voice carried. "I'm an employee of the catering company you hired." "You're a disruption," Victoria countered. "And you're leaving." Robert finally spoke from across the room. "Inverna, please, don't make this harder." Those 7 words from my father hurt more than all of Victoria's venom. "Don't make this harder," as if I was the one causing problems by simply existing in the same space. The security guard reached for my arm again. This time I didn't resist, but I also didn't move. "Your name was never supposed to be there, Inverna." Victoria's final words were meant to wound. "You were never supposed to be part of this family." "Mom, she's embarrassing us." Cassandra's voice rang out, playing to her audience of influencers who were live streaming the drama. "A waitress at our gala?" Aunt Helen clutched her pearls in theatrical horror. "Victoria, dear, how mortifying for you." Uncle George, Dad's own brother, shook his head in disgust. "Robert, control your daughter. This is inappropriate." "Control your daughter." As if I were a misbehaving child instead of a 29-year-old woman being publicly humiliated for having a job they deemed beneath them. "Security, Please escort her out. Victoria's command was firm, final. Through the service exit where she belongs. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for the climax of this unexpected entertainment. Someone actually laughed, a cruel tinkling sound that echoed off the crystal chandeliers. Madison, Cassandra's friend, narrated for her Instagram followers. Oh my god, you guys, the family drama is insane. She's literally being kicked out. The security guards flanked me now, close enough that I could smell their cologne. The larger one spoke quietly, almost kindly. Ma'am, please don't make us force you. I stood perfectly still, counting my breaths. 1, 2, 3. I wouldn't cry, wouldn't beg, wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. My mother had taught me that dignity couldn't be taken, only surrendered. This is what you wanted, isn't it? I asked Victoria, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. To erase me completely? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her satisfaction was written across her face. 4, 5. Then, with timing so perfect it seemed scripted, the main ballroom doors swung open. Not the service entrance where they wanted to exile me, but the grand main entrance, with its gold-leafed frame and crystal handles. Every head in the room turned toward the sound. The two security guards had their hands hovering near my elbows, not quite touching, but ready to escort me out. The crowd had formed a perfect semicircle, phones raised like modern-day torches, capturing every second of my humiliation for social media posterity. This is a private event, Victoria repeated into the microphone, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been challenged. We have standards to maintain. Standards. The word echoed in the vast ballroom, bouncing off marble pillars and crystal fixtures. Several guests nodded in agreement, comfortable in their bubble of privilege where worth was measured in net worth. Madison zoomed her phone camera on my face. She's not even crying, she whispered to her followers, sounding almost disappointed. Just standing there like a statue. The security guards exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the scene, but bound by their duty to the client. The younger one shifted his weight, his polished shoes squeaking against the marble floor. Then came the footsteps from the main entrance, measured, deliberate, commanding attention without demanding it. The footsteps were familiar, measured, authoritative, the kind of walk that suggested the person knew exactly where they belonged and had no doubt about their right to be there. The crowd near the door began to part like the Red Sea, whispers following in the wake. Is that? Oh my God, he's here! But he wasn't supposed to arrive until... Victoria's assistant frantically checked his tablet, his face paling. Mrs. Toland, he stammered, but she waved him off, too focused on her victory to notice the shift in the room's energy. The security guards hesitated, looking toward the entrance. Even they sensed that something had changed, that the power dynamic in the room was about to shift dramatically. The footsteps stopped just inside the doorway, and for a moment, the entire ballroom held its breath. If you've ever been judged for your job or felt like family should accept you as you are, hit that subscribe button. This story is about to take a turn that nobody in that ballroom expected. Have you ever had to hide something important from your family? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's see what happens when the person walking through that door changes everything. Marcus Whitmore commanded attention without trying. His charcoal Tom Ford suit was understated but impeccable, the kind of quiet luxury that whispered rather than shouted. He moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who'd been born into rooms like this, but had earned his place through merit, rather than inheritance. Victoria's entire demeanor transformed in an instant. The microphone lowered from her lips, her spine straightened, and her charity gala smile snapped into place like armor. Mr. Whitmore, what an honor! Her voice dripped honey where moments before it had dripped venom. We weren't expecting you until the auction. But Marcus didn't look at her. His dark eyes swept across the ballroom with the practiced ease of someone who could read a room in seconds. The cluster of phones recording, the security guards flanking me, the crowd hungry for drama. His gaze found mine across the sea of designer gowns and tuxedos, and something flickered in his expression. Not surprise, he knew exactly what he was walking into. He'd probably watched it unfold from the lobby cameras on his phone. "Mrs. Toland," he said, his voice carrying without effort. "I see you have a situation here." Victoria's face transformed from triumph to desperate hospitality. The most powerful man in the room, the one whose company's $50 million commitment over 5 years made her gala possible, had arrived at the worst possible moment. Or perhaps, from my perspective, the perfect one. "Just a minor misunderstanding," she chirped, gesturing for the security guards to step back. "Nothing to concern yourself with." But Marcus was already walking toward us, each step deliberate. The crowd parted for him the way they'd parted for the security guards, but with reverence rather than curiosity. He wasn't looking at Victoria anymore. He was looking at me. Marcus stopped 3 feet from our uncomfortable tableau, his presence immediately shifting the dynamic. The security guards instinctively stepped back, responding to an authority that had nothing to do with physical intimidation and everything to do with power. His gaze moved from my face to my left hand, lingering for a fraction of a second on the thin gold band barely visible beneath my server's glove. Anyone watching would have missed it, but I saw the muscle in his jaw tighten, the only sign of his carefully controlled anger. "Let me introduce you to," Victoria began, but Marcus raised his hand slightly, a gesture so subtle yet effective that she stopped mid-sentence. "I see you have a situation here," he repeated, his tone conversational, but with an edge that made several nearby guests take an involuntary step back. "Someone being removed from your event?" Victoria's laugh was nervous, tinkling like broken glass. "Oh, just a small staffing confusion. This person," she couldn't even say my name, "isn't supposed to be in the main ballroom." Interesting. Marcus's eyes never left mine. "And why is that?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Victoria glanced between us, and for the first time tonight, uncertainty flickered across her face. Something about the way Marcus was looking at me, the way he'd positioned himself between me and the security guards, didn't fit the script she'd written. She's just catering staff," Cassandra supplied helpfully, missing every social cue that would have told her to stay quiet. "We have standards about who mingles with our donors." "Standards," Marcus repeated, tasting the word like wine he was about to send back. "Tell me more about these standards." His eyes lingered on my left hand for a fraction of a second. The wedding ring I'd hidden under my glove seemed to burn against my skin. "Just a small misunderstanding," Victoria said, her voice pitched higher now, desperate to regain control. "This person isn't supposed to be here." "She's just the help, Mr. Whitmore," Cassandra added with a dismissive wave, still filming everything for her followers. "My stepsister thinks she can crash our events just because she's related to us." The words hung in the air like a confession. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. Even they could sense Cassandra had said too much. "Your stepsister," Marcus said slowly, as if tasting each word, "who you're having security remove." "She's embarrassing the family," Aunt Helen chimed in, emboldened by mob mentality. "Showing up here in a server's uniform, trying to pretend she belongs." "The girl's a waitress," Uncle George added with undisguised contempt. "Has been for years. Dropped out of her MBA program to play with food." Each word was another nail in their coffin, though they didn't know it yet. The crowd leaned in, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. Madison zoomed her camera on Marcus's face, then mine, then back again. "Just the help?" Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet now. A few board members who knew him well enough took involuntary steps backward. They'd heard that tone in hostile takeover meetings. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not a warm laugh, but the kind that made the temperature in the room drop several degrees. "Just the help," he repeated, shaking his head. "Mrs. Toland, you really have no idea who you're throwing out of your event, do you?" Victoria's smile faltered completely now. I don't understand what you mean. No, Marcus agreed, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom. You really don't. The entire room held its breath, waiting for whatever revelation was about to detonate Victoria's carefully constructed world. Mrs. Toland, do you know who this woman is? Marcus's question cut through the silence like a scalpel. Victoria's chin lifted defiantly. Unfortunately, yes, my husband's daughter from his first marriage. No. Marcus took a step closer to me, his presence warm and solid. Do you really know who she is? Confusion rippled through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. Victoria's eyes darted between us, her social antenna finally picking up signals she'd been too arrogant to notice before. The way Marcus had positioned himself, the way he looked at me, the way his hand had clenched when the security guards touched my arm. What do you mean? Victoria's voice had lost its commanding tone. I'm asking if you know anything about her beyond your prejudices, Marcus continued, his voice carrying that dangerous calm that preceded corporate bloodbaths. Do you know where she graduated from, what she's accomplished, who she is beyond your narrow definition of success? She's a waitress, Cassandra supplied unhelpfully, still not reading the room. She serves food for a living. She serves food at La Bernardine, Marcus corrected, one of 7 restaurants in the city with 3 Michelin stars. Do you know how difficult it is to even get hired there? The crowd murmured. Several food enthusiasts in the audience looked at me with new interest. La Bernardine had a 6-month waiting list, and dinner for 2 cost more than most mortgage payments. Victoria's smile faltered. What does it matter where she— It matters, Marcus interrupted, because you're about to learn exactly who you've been humiliating for the past 20 minutes. I looked at Marcus and gave him the smallest nod. Permission. It was time. Then let me introduce you properly, he said, and the ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Marcus moved to stand beside me with the fluid grace of a dancer, each movement deliberate and meaningful. When he took my hand in full view of 500 guests, the gesture was both tender and declarative, a claim, a protection, and a challenge all at once. Gasps erupted across the ballroom like fireworks. Someone dropped a champagne flute. It shattered against the marble, the sound sharp in the stunned silence that followed. What? What are you doing? Victoria's voice cracked, her composure finally shattering like that champagne glass. Cassandra's phone slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering on the floor. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, no words coming out for perhaps the first time in her life. The crowd pressed closer, their shock palpable. These people who'd just been calling for my removal, who'd laughed at my humiliation, now stared at our intertwined hands as if witnessing a magic trick they couldn't explain. Marcus lifted my hand slightly, ensuring everyone could see the simple gold band on my finger, the one I'd hidden under my server's glove for 2 years. The overhead lights caught it, making it gleam like a beacon. I don't understand, Victoria stammered, her face cycling through expressions, confusion, denial, dawning horror. This is some kind of mistake. No mistake, Marcus said simply, his thumb brushing over my wedding ring in a gesture so intimate that several people looked away. Though I understand your confusion, we've kept our personal life private. Robert, my father, pushed through the crowd, his face ashen. Inverna? His voice was strangled. What is this? The diamond ring on my finger caught the chandelier light, sending tiny rainbows across Victoria's pale face. The same woman who'd just called me just the help was now staring at evidence that I was anything but. This is my wife, Inverna Whitmore. Marcus's words detonated in the ballroom like a bomb, sending shockwaves through the crowd. We've been married for 2 years. The room exploded. 500 voices rose at once, gasps, exclamations, denials. Someone actually screamed. Phones flashed like strobe lights as everyone tried to capture the moment when Victoria Ashford Toland's world imploded. That's impossible! Cassandra shrieked, abandoning all pretense of sophistication. Her carefully curated image crumbled as she stood there, mouth agape, looking between her mother and me. Victoria's face had gone from pale to gray, her body swaying slightly as if the ground had shifted beneath her designer heels. The microphone slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a feedback shriek that made everyone wince. "Mrs. Inverna Whitmore," Marcus repeated, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Remember that name, Victoria." The security guards who'd been about to escort me out now stood frozen, uncertain whether they should bow, apologize, or simply disappear. The older one actually took a step back, his hand moving to his tie as if it had suddenly become too tight. Madison and her influencer friends had their phones trained on us, broadcasting the drama to thousands of followers in real time. The hashtags would be trending within the hour. Charity Gala scandal, billionaire wife. Reveal, Toland Foundation, drama. Board members of the Toland Foundation exchanged panicked glances. Several major donors were already moving toward the exits, their expressions suggesting they wanted nothing to do with whatever was about to happen next. 2 years, someone whispered. She's been his wife for 2 years. While Victoria treated her like garbage, another voice added. Called her just the help, a third person said, loud enough for Victoria to hear. The woman who'd orchestrated my humiliation now stood at the center of her own. "We kept it private at Inverna's request," Marcus explained to the stunned audience, his voice carrying the kind of authority that commanded attention without demanding it. She wanted to succeed on her own merits, without anyone assuming she'd gotten opportunities because of my name. He pulled out his phone with his free hand, swiping to a photo that he held up for those closest to see. Our wedding certificate, dated 2 years ago, filed quietly at City Hall on a Tuesday afternoon when we decided we didn't want to wait another day to start our life together. "But I won't stand by while she's humiliated," he continued, his voice hardening, "especially by people who should have celebrated her achievements instead of diminishing them." Victoria stammered, her usual eloquence destroyed. We didn't. How could we have known?" "You could have known by asking," Marcus replied. "By showing interest in her life instead of systematically excluding her. By recognizing that she owns 50% of La Bernardine, where she chooses to work service because she loves the craft, not because she has to." Another wave of gasps. La Bernardine, the restaurant with a 6-month waiting list, where a tasting menu cost $800 per person. I wasn't just a waitress there. I was an owner. "She's a James Beard Award nominee," Marcus continued, each revelation another nail in Victoria's social coffin. "She graduated summa cum laude from Yale before you even met her. She speaks 4 languages and could have worked at any Fortune 500 company, but she chose to follow her passion instead." Robert looked like he'd been punched. "Inverna, why didn't you tell me?" "When would I have told you, Dad?" I finally spoke, my voice steady. "During the family dinners I wasn't invited to, the holidays I spent alone, the 5 years you let her erase me." "About our sponsorship contract." Marcus's tone shifted to pure business, the warmth he'd shown me replaced with corporate steel. Victoria's head snapped up, panic flooding her features. "The contract is ironclad, you can't—" "Whitmore Holdings is withdrawing," Marcus announced to the room. "Effective immediately." "You can't!" Victoria's voice cracked with desperation. "We have an agreement. 5 years, $50 million. "Check clause 15, Marcus said calmly, though his hand tightened around mine. "Breach of professional conduct that brings negative publicity to any party or their representatives." He gestured to the phone still recording, the hundreds of witnesses to Victoria's cruelty. "Publicly humiliating my wife certainly qualifies. Wouldn't you agree?" The foundation's board members were already pulling out their phones, frantically calling their lawyers. Gerald Morrison, the board chair, looked like he might have a stroke. "Victoria, what have you done?" $50 million, someone whispered. "That's 60% of their operating budget." "The Children's Hospital wing," another voice added. "The scholarship program." Each whisper was another cut to Victoria's reputation. She'd just destroyed 5 years of guaranteed funding because she couldn't resist humiliating someone she deemed beneath her. "This is vindictive," Victoria tried, grasping for any leverage. "You're punishing charitable causes because of a personal matter." "No," Marcus corrected. I'm enforcing a contract clause that exists specifically to protect all parties from behavior like yours. Besides, Whitmore Holdings will redirect those funds to other charities, ones that understand the value of treating all people with dignity. Three other major donors were already approaching Marcus, their expressions making it clear they were reconsidering their own commitments. If Whitmore was out, they wanted to know why. If Whitmore's out, we're reconsidering too, Harrison Banks announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Victoria's empire was crumbling in real time. Can you imagine the look on Victoria's face? If you've ever wanted to see someone who judged you eat their words, smash that like button. This next part shows exactly what happens when you burn bridges with the wrong person. What would you have done in my position? Reveal it immediately or wait like I did? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself with class. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his legal team, deliberately putting it on speaker so everyone could hear. The room fell silent except for his voice and the tinny response from his chief counsel. Jennifer, I need you to cancel all Toland Foundation contracts immediately. All of them, sir? The lawyer's voice was crisp, professional. That's 5 years of commitments totaling $50 million. All of them, Marcus confirmed. Cite Clause 15, breach of professional conduct. I'm sending you video evidence now. Several people were already uploading their recordings, the scandal spreading across social media in real time. The Toland Foundation's reputation, built over 20 years, was being destroyed in 20 minutes. Other sponsors began stepping forward. Harrison Banks from Banks Industries approached, followed by Margaret Chen from Chen Technologies and David Kumar from Kumar Pharmaceuticals. If there's a culture problem at the foundation, Banks announced, we need to reassess our involvement. Agreed, Chen added, looking directly at Victoria. We donate to organizations that reflect our values. This display suggests a serious misalignment. The murmuring grew louder. 3 more sponsors meant another $30 million in jeopardy. The foundation's entire budget was evaporating because Victoria couldn't treat her stepdaughter with basic human decency. Kumar pulled out his phone. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Donor Advisory Council. This needs to be addressed immediately. Victoria swayed on her feet, gripping the edge of a table for support. This is ridiculous. You're destroying 20 years of charitable work over a family dispute. No, Marcus corrected coldly. You destroyed it the moment you decided someone's worth was determined by their job title, the moment you used your position to humiliate someone you considered beneath you. Board members were already huddling in corners, whispering about emergency protocols and damage control. The gala meant to celebrate philanthropy had become its funeral. Please, let's discuss this privately, Victoria pleaded, abandoning all pretense of control. Her perfect makeup was cracking, mascara smudging as tears threatened. Like how you privately humiliated my wife? Marcus asked, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. In front of 500 witnesses? I finally spoke, my voice calm but firm. Victoria, you made your choice. You chose image over family, status over substance. You could have told us, she said desperately, if we'd known who you married. That's exactly why we didn't tell you, I interrupted. Because it shouldn't matter who I married. You should have treated me with respect regardless. I learned from you, Victoria, I continued, meeting her gaze steadily. Image is everything, right? Well, now everyone can see your true image. Cassandra tried to approach me, her hands outstretched in supplication. Inverna, please, we're family. You can't let him do this. Family? I asked quietly. Was I family when you told everyone I was just the help? When you filmed my humiliation for your Instagram followers? She flinched as if slapped. I didn't mean... You meant every word, I said simply. You just didn't expect consequences. The board members had finished their hushed conference. Gerald Morrison stepped forward, his face grave. Victoria, we need to discuss your position as chair immediately. This incident has created a crisis of confidence in the foundation's leadership. You can't remove me, Victoria's voice pitched toward hysteria. I built this foundation. And you may have just destroyed it, Morrison replied coldly. The emergency board meeting is tomorrow at 9 a.m. I suggest you bring legal counsel. Robert finally found his voice. Inverna, please, don't do this. Think of all the good the foundation does. I am thinking of it, Dad. That's why it deserves better leadership. The board members converged on Victoria like sharks scenting blood. Gerald Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. We need an emergency meeting, tonight. This is a disaster for the foundation, another board member, Patricia Wells, said loudly enough for everyone to hear. 20 years of reputation destroyed in one evening. More sponsors approached Victoria, their intentions clear before they even spoke. We'll be reviewing our commitments, they said, one after another, like dominoes falling. Cassandra made one last desperate attempt at damage control. Inverna, I'm sorry. I didn't mean those things. Please, can we talk? Your apology is 5 years too late, Cassandra. I turned away from her, feeling Marcus's supportive presence beside me. The security guards who'd been about to throw me out now stood awkwardly at the edges of the drama, clearly wishing they could disappear. The older one actually approached Marcus. Sir, we had no idea. We were just following Mrs. Toland's orders. I know, Marcus said simply. You were doing your job. Unlike Mrs. Toland, I don't blame people for that. The pointed comment made Victoria flinch. She stood in the center of the ballroom she'd ruled just minutes ago, now abandoned by allies who sensed the shifting power dynamic. Waiters from La Bernardine, my colleagues, began to gather around me, their expressions showing a mix of shock and fierce pride. They'd watched me face this humiliation with dignity, and now they witnessed my vindication. Should we continue service? My manager, Chef Bernard, asked quietly. He'd emerged from the kitchen, having heard the commotion. I looked at the chaos around us, board members arguing, sponsors leaving, Victoria standing alone in her designer gown like a queen without a kingdom. No, I said clearly. La Bernardine is withdrawing from this event, effective immediately. The next morning, the scandal was everywhere. Charity Gala, disaster foundation chair humiliates billionaire's wife, ran across the business section of the Times. The social media clips had gone viral overnight, with millions of views and counting. The foundation held its emergency board meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. By 9:47, Victoria Ashford Toland was no longer chair. By noon, she'd been removed from the board entirely. The vote was unanimous. The foundation's losses were staggering. Beyond Whitmore Holdings' $50 million, 6 other major sponsors pulled their funding. Total damage, $120 million over 5 years. The Children's Hospital wing was postponed indefinitely. The scholarship program cut by 70%. Cassandra's carefully curated image imploded along with her mother's. The video of her calling me just the help had been memed, remixed, and shared across every platform. Her influencer partnerships evaporated overnight. Brands didn't want to be associated with someone who'd become the internet's poster child for entitled cruelty. Then came the personal fallout. Cassandra's fiancé, Thomas Wellington III, called off their engagement 3 days later. His family's old money sensibilities couldn't tolerate the scandal. We have standards to maintain, his mother told the press, echoing Victoria's own words with bitter irony. The society pages that had once celebrated Victoria now dissected her downfall with barely concealed glee. From philanthropy queen to pariah, the Victoria Toland story became the most read article in the Chronicle's history. Her charity luncheon friends distanced themselves immediately. The country club quietly suggested she take a temporary leave of absence. The museum board she'd served on for a decade found a polite reason to request her resignation. In trying to protect her image by excluding me, Victoria had destroyed everything she'd spent 20 years building. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 3 days after the gala, my phone rang at 7 a.m. Dad. Inverna, can we talk? Just the two of us? We met at Mom's favorite coffee shop, the one near our old house where she used to take me for hot chocolate after piano lessons. He looked older, defeated, sitting in the corner booth we'd claimed as ours 20 years ago. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you," he said without preamble. "I was a coward." The words hung between us like a bridge waiting to be crossed. I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times, but now that it was here, I felt strangely calm. "Yes, you were," I agreed simply. No point in softening the truth now. He flinched but didn't defend himself. I told myself I was keeping the peace, that it would blow over, that Victoria would eventually come around. "Did you really believe that?" "No." The admission seemed to physically pain him. "I knew what she was doing. I was afraid of being alone again after your mother died." "So you chose her comfort over mine?" "Yes." Tears ran down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. "And I lost you because of it. The truth is, Inverna, I lost the best part of our family when I let Victoria erase you. Dad, I needed you to choose me just once." "I know, God, I know. Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike, and had walked me down the aisle at my secret wedding, because despite everything, I'd still wanted my father there. "I can try," I said finally, "but Victoria can't be part of this. If you want a relationship with me, it's just us." "She's moving out," he said quietly. "The divorce papers were filed yesterday." Life after the gala felt surreal but authentic in a way it hadn't been for years. I still worked service at La Bernardine 3 nights a week, but now I did it openly, without hiding my wedding ring or pretending to be someone I wasn't. My colleagues treated me differently, not with the deference I'd feared, but with a deeper respect. They'd seen me face humiliation with dignity and come through it without losing myself. "You could have destroyed her from day one," my fellow server Antoine said one evening, "but you waited. You let her show her true colors." "I never wanted to destroy anyone," I replied, polishing wine glasses for the evening service. "I just wanted to be left alone to live my life." Marcus and I went properly public after the gala. We attended events together, but I kept working because I loved it. The food world embraced us, a power couple who understood that passion mattered more than pedigree. The James Beard Award nomination I'd kept quiet about became public knowledge. Food and Wine magazine did a profile. The billionaire's wife who chooses to wait tables. But the story wasn't about Marcus. It was about my journey, my achievements, my choice to follow passion over convention. Chef Bernard promoted me to service director, a role that let me train new servers while still working the floor. "You understand service at a level most people never reach," he said. "Because you understand that serving others is a privilege, not a humiliation." Marcus supported every decision. "I fell in love with the woman who chose happiness over status," he reminded me one evening as we prepped for service together, him helping as a volunteer runner, just for fun. "Why would I want you to change now?" I never needed their approval. I needed my own. 6 months after the gala, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. But I recognized the writing style immediately. Formal, carefully worded, desperate. "Inverna, I hope this message finds you well. I've had time to reflect on my actions and realize how wrong I was. I would very much appreciate the opportunity to apologize in person and perhaps start fresh. Could we meet for coffee? Victoria." I stared at the message for a long time. The woman who'd tried to erase me from existence now wanted to reconcile. Marcus found me in our kitchen, phone in hand. "She wants to meet," I said simply. "What do you want?" he asked, knowing better than to influence my decision. I typed my response carefully, each word deliberate. "Victoria, I appreciate you reaching out. I hold no anger toward you, but I also have no interest in pretending we're family. We can coexist at any future family events involving my father, but that's the extent of what I'm comfortable with. I wish you well in your future endeavors, but our relationship ends here. Inverna." Her response came quickly. "Please reconsider." I've changed. Respect is earned, Victoria, not demanded, I replied. And it starts with accepting boundaries when they're clearly stated. Please don't contact me again. I blocked the number and felt a weight lift. Setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Some relationships couldn't be repaired, and that was okay. Dad understood. We had dinner every Sunday now, just the two of us, rebuilding what Victoria had tried to destroy. He never mentioned her, and I never asked. "You're stronger than I ever was," he said one evening. "No, Dad. I just learned earlier that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's approval." "Your mother would be proud," he said softly. "I know," I replied. "I am too." Looking back now, I realized that night at the gala wasn't about revenge. It was about revelation. Victoria revealed who she truly was, and the consequences were simply the natural result of her choices. Here's what I learned. Your worth isn't determined by your job title or bank account. It's not measured by which events you're invited to or which people claim you as family. Worth is intrinsic. You carry it with you whether you're serving champagne or drinking it. Success isn't just about climbing ladders others have built. Sometimes it's about building your own ladder, even if others can't see where it leads. I chose passion over prestige, authenticity over approval, and I've never regretted it. Family isn't just about blood or marriage certificates. It's about who shows up, who sees your value when you're at your lowest, who celebrates your choices even when they don't understand them. Marcus, my colleagues at La Bernardine, the friends who stood by me, they're my real family. Setting boundaries isn't cruel or vindictive, it's an act of self-respect. You don't owe anyone access to your life, especially those who've shown they'll use that access to hurt you. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. You can wish someone well from a distance. The best revenge, truly, is living well on your own terms. Not to spite anyone, but because your happiness isn't dependent on their validation. Victoria lost everything trying to protect an image. I gained everything by refusing to sacrifice my truth for anyone's comfort. If you're reading this because someone in your life makes you feel less than because of your choices, know this. Their inability to see your worth doesn't diminish it. You don't need their invitation to belong. You already belong exactly as you are. Your value doesn't need their validation. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been judged by family for your choices, know that you're not alone. Your value doesn't come from their approval. What's the worst thing a family member has said about your job? Share in the comments. Let's support each other. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I share new stories every week about standing up for yourself with dignity. Remember, the best revenge is living well on your own terms.